What's up, guys? For today's video, I'm back working on the John boat. My goal for today is to get this boat flipped over so I can work on getting the bottom prepped for epoxy and paint. After the bottom is coated and the outside is painted, the boat can get flipped back over and onto the freshly restored trailer. If you guys want to see everything I did to restore this trailer, I'll have a link in the description and a card up right now. All right, so now I got to figure out how to flip this boat over and hopefully get it up on some horses to prep the bottom and sides of the boat, so I'll be able to apply the epoxy, primer, and paint before it gets back on the trailer. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is sand this down a little bit more than I have already. Try to find out what this is covering up and see if there's any additional work that needs to be done. Let's go ahead and get this sanded up and see what we're working with. All right, well, at this point, I'm not seeing anything major. This would probably just seal up two leaking rivets right here. This is solid, nothing's chipping off, so I'm not really gonna dig out all this epoxy, especially not if I'm just gonna coat it with some more epoxy on top. This was definitely JB Weld. It seems to have adhered very, very well, so I'm not too worried about that. This is all gonna get cleaned up a little bit better with the wire wheel just to make sure we got a good surface to work with, especially on these cracks right here. Got one right there, one right there. But aside from that, it's honestly not that bad. I'm gonna go ahead and keep prepping the bottom surface here, get this all ready for the epoxy, and we'll go from there. Now what I'm working on now is using the wire brush, the circular one, to grind around the rivets. That way when the epoxy lays on top, if there's any like loose debris or particles, that's been cleared out so the epoxy can seep down into the rivet wells and really seal them up good. Found these sanding sponges actually work very, very well for roughing up the surface. I'm actually finding it working better than the power sander. Probably the softness, being able to get into all the different angles and stuff like that. I'm not looking to strip the paint, just rough it up because the paint's still good on the boat. All right, now that the boat is fully prepped, it's time to rinse it down and get it ready for epoxy. First thing I need to do is obviously rinse off all the sanding dust, and then I'm gonna apply some aluminum brightener. This is gonna remove any of the oxidation that may have formed after we expose the bare aluminum and get the boat perfectly ready for epoxy. All right, got my aluminum brightener, put it in a spray bottle. We go ahead and spray the whole boat down. It says to let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll be rinsing it off. All right, at this point, the boat is completely cleaned down and prepped for epoxy. I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit outside for a couple minutes to dry off, and then we'll get it set back up on the stands and get the epoxy on the floor. The aluminum is much, much brighter now. That's why it's called an aluminum brightener. But really what it is, it's a certain concentration of sulfuric acid, which just eats away a very thin layer of the aluminum, mainly oxidation that comes on top of the aluminum once it's exposed to air. I'll check back once we're set up in the garage and ready for the epoxy. All right, well at this point we are finally ready for bottom coating. The epoxy that I'm going to be using today is the Coat It brand. I used it on the last boat. It is extremely durable, it works really well, and it applies really easy also. As you've seen throughout this video, the boat has been completely prepped. We sanded everything down, specifically touching all the rivets so the epoxy will seep down and seal everything up really well. I have another video dedicated specifically on how to apply the coated epoxy, also a review and shows you guys like the whole step-by-step process. So I'm not going to go into the details of everything now. Basically for this video, I'm just going to be mixing it up and applying it. But if you're looking for more information on how to mix and apply epoxy, as well as information about this brand specifically, I'll have a link in the description and a card up right now. The only thing I'm going to do differently this time is I'm going to try applying it with a roller. Last time I used a brush and it got really fatiguing towards the end and the brush started falling apart. So what I think I'm going to do is mix up some epoxy, pour some on the top of every single rivet just to make sure that it's puddled really well on the rivets. That should give complete coverage everywhere and with extra attention paid to the rivets. I'm going to go ahead and apply the tape and then apply the epoxy. We'll check back when it's done. All the rivets on the bottom of the boat have been sealed up with Coat It epoxy. I didn't have enough material to do a full bottom coating, but I was really only adding epoxy to make sure the rivets were sealed. So I decided to use the material I had and make sure every single rivet was perfectly puddled with epoxy and sealed up. Any of the extra material I had on hand, I made sure to put along the front of the boat. I figure of all places on the boat, this is going to see the most wear, so why not cover this with a little bit extra. I also did the same towards the back of the boat because I figure if you're going to be scraping on the ground, it could happen on the back as well. All right guys, well at this point the epoxy is looking perfect. It is completely cured. We are finally ready to move on to the next step, which is painting the exterior and bottom of the boat. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys found this helpful, don't forget to let me know by hitting that like button. If you want to follow along with this John boat build and see what else I got in store, don't forget to subscribe. I got a lot of great ideas. Thanks for watching.